Hi everybody, this is week, I think 72, and this week we're talking about, we're doing just kind of like a Q&A, question and answer session with our partners, talking about a few different questions that the group of posters has decided to choose from, and maybe just adding a few of our own as well. So, I'm Sufia, and this is Seamus.
Hi.
Shay. And so, yeah, so I guess we're just going to jump into some questions so you can get to know us a little bit as a couple and how we handle some things as a couple that have to do with just us being a couple, two people, two humans in this world, and also working with transition. So...
All right. How did the two of you meet?
So, we always tell this story differently, but...
you always tell it better.
Because I add details. I like to add details, and Shay gives the bare bones basics.
We met, we had a date, we got married, and here we are. Yeah.
And my version has a lot more details in it, but yeah. So we met through a friend, basically. I moved away from Asheville, moved back to Asheville, and was kind of hanging out with a whole new set of friends, and was hanging out with this friend, and then we realized that we almost met for years, and we never ended up meeting. Our circles kept just orbiting right around each other, and we just never actually ended up meeting, but we had known the same people for years. But anyway, so we met through a friend and had a really beautiful date. I sent a Facebook message. I totally stalked Shay on Facebook, and I have never done this before, and I've never pursued anybody, but I sent Shay a Facebook message and said, hey, let's go have a coffee date. And then we did, and then we talked for hours and hours and hours, and then we got married later. But
well, that brings us to our next question.
yeah.
What did you do on your first date?
Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. You want to talk about it?
Sure. So, after our magical, serendipitous meeting at a coffee shop, and after your sweet message on Facebook, and then we finally had a phone call, and it was like, well, do you want to have coffee? Sure. So, we went to this really sweet little coffee shop / champagne bar, wine bar / used bookstore.
It's a really cute little place with
Yeah.
Nice leather chairs, and you can bring your dogs in. And
Easily one of our favorite places in Asheville. Here's a shameless plug. Battery Park Book Exchange.
If you're ever in Asheville,
go. So we met around 5:15 for coffee and just to talk, and we ended up shutting the place down. It was like 11:30, and we had talked about everything from religion to travel to history to human rights to just whatever, and really connected. And it was that magical moment where like time stands still, only it didn't, because it was 11:30. And so and then we decided that night that we would later have a second date where we would curl up on the couch and have salads together.
That's right. I said that,
and we never did it. We've still not done it.
Yeah.
We've still not done that.
I really was. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should.
So
do
that was our first date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Magical. It was. Okay.
Okay. So when was the first moment that your partner realized they were trans, and how did they tell you? So I actually, when I saw Shay for the very first time, I was sitting with my friend at a coffee shop, and Shay was coming to meet us, and so I actually didn't know that Shay was the person who was coming. I just saw this person walking down the street, and I was like, wow, that person's really beautiful. And then it ended up being Shay, and so at that moment, the very first moment I saw them, I thought that they were possibly trans or transitioning, and at the time, you were not. You were identifying as genderqueer.
Right. And this process, honestly started probably the moment that I came out to myself as, at the time, a lesbian, identifying as a woman, and then realizing that I liked women, and so that process of accepting, that orientation in the middle of Christian theology and whatever, just started several years before we met, and then I would say not too long before we met did I really consciously start thinking about bringing that masculinity to the fore and to the physical and all of those things. And so, but I don't know that there's really been a moment that I can identify where I'm like, and today I'm trans. Today I identify this way. I did start using the term genderqueer right around the time that we met, and then we got married. So that was a year later,
and it was after we were married that you started.
About 3 or 4 months after that, that I really, honestly, I started to feel a lot of dysphoria around my chest. It's really, and that's really the only dysphoria that I really experience on a daily basis. And I've experienced that for a long time. And so that just kind of reached a critical tipping point, really, where I wanted to do something about that. And testosterone was really, I don't want to say an afterthought. I don't want to downplay that at all. It's definitely been integral in my process, but it was secondary to top surgery and to chest dysphoria and things like that. And so I think those things kind of came to a point where I really had to sit down and evaluate what was going on. And that was probably a couple months after we got married. And so
and you told me, you talked about wanting to align, feeling that you embody masculinity and femininity and wanting to kind of bring that out, and that was the process. It was kind of this was a means to an end, right? In a way, I don't want to
Yes. No, that's right. I did say that. And I still say that, not as often. I just feel more distracted. But, yes. So, for me, transition's not going from female to male. For me, being transgender is really transcending gender and kind of holding masculinity and femininity and everything in between and outside of that, kind of within myself. And so that's because I've just never, I don't know, it just feels more fluid to me, and so I'm trying to embody that fluidity in a way. And it's very much a spiritual process also.
It's gotten really dark.
Yeah, we're losing light. We should
move into it. Yeah. So I work all day on Mondays, and so we're making this video on Sunday evening. So we're going to have to find some light.
Yep. Be right back. So last part of that question. So the question was, when was the first moment they realized they were trans, and how did they tell you? So what I was saying is there wasn't a moment where I suddenly decided and then told you. It was just a process, and just kind of over the natural course of our relationship and talking, it just kind of came up, and we just kind of talked about it as it came up and processed that. And so there was a day where we talked about, me pursuing hormone therapy and how I was feeling and why I wanted to do that and all those good things. And that was, so that was a couple months after we were married. And so that was winter time, 2012. Is that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then March 2013, I started testosterone. So, yes. Okay.
And I was going to say also on my end of that process, something that I'm really grateful for is that we talked about things along the way, which personally for me, I like to deal with things as they come up, so that's really important. But it also just allowed us to, you didn't feel, because of the openness in our relationship, I don't think there was any feeling for you of having to hide anything, or and then one day having to come out all of a sudden with this grand thing. It was right. As things were developing for you, there was space in our relationship to talk about those things as they come up, whatever those things are, for either one of us. And so I think that really helped us in our process.
Yeah, and I think in the greater context of our relationship, everything was just kind of on the table from the beginning, and so my gender journey was part of what was on the table. So that was just laid out in the beginning, and I think that was really helpful and really served us well as the relationship grew. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see.
So did you say, how did you tell me? Oh yeah, you said. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the funniest reaction anyone had to the news of your partner being trans? So, So what comes to mind immediately is after we moved here to Austin, we were hanging out around a bonfire with some folks we had met, and just we were just talking about sexuality and orientation and things like that, and so naturally I thought it was a good time to come out to these folks as trans, and I had the guy that I was talking to, who was talking about his bisexuality, and he like puts his arm around me and he looks at his wife and he's like, "Sorry, like I found what I needed now, you know, like
We've
like
been
like
looking,
yeah,
we
I found what I was looking for." And of course,
because part of the conversation was them talking about how open they are and bringing people into their